Hey, welcome to Wednesday Wisdom. This is Victor Kumar, and today we're going to talk about whether to buy houses or units. But to be able to do that, there are a few things we need to understand. And one of the most important things that we need to understand is that in terms of property ownership, the number of investment properties that we own, the numbers slide dramatically as you go from 1 to 3 properties. In fact, there is a very small cohort of people that own 3 properties as opposed to 1 investment property. And when you get to property number 5, there's just a handful of us. And this is straight from the ATO stats. Now, when you put that into perspective, it makes more sense that if you were to start investing, you'd be buying houses over units. Why? Because houses statistically tend to have more faster growth in the forefront. And dialing in the next stat, which is where most people own their investment properties, or hold their investment properties for between 5 to 7 years before they offload, for various reasons, right? It may have done its job, it may have been a change of life circumstances, or they just simply can't hold on to it. So when you look at those two things that are actually working in the background, it does make more sense to purchase a house over a unit within your capacity. However, when we look at now the population pressure, the growth factors, the speed of growth, we understand that Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane are your larger areas with greater growth, greater immediate growth. And notice that I've said Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane and not New South Wales, Victoria, Queensland, because it is with these larger hubs with multiple employment hubs within that hub that creates the growth, because we've got money coming into the community, consistent increasing money coming into that. We've got population pressure, so more people coming in because of the jobs, because of the lifestyle, because of being next to or close to their families and their friends. And then of course we've got the availability of jobs and lifestyle in those areas. Not saying that regional areas or the greater metropolitan area is not a good place to live. It is horses for courses at the end of the day. But when I come back to this concept of investing first in the faster growth areas, it brings us back into Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane. And naturally we want to have more houses, because traditionally with these areas you have a lot of units also, which tends to lead to oversupply. So it lurches from undersupply to oversupply depending on the economy. Hence the thought process that perhaps units are not as good as houses. Now I can give you lots of evidence of where houses have outperformed units. And I can give you equal amount of stats and data evidence where it shows that units have outperformed houses. Not perhaps so much in terms of pricing, but in terms of ability to hold on, because ultimately you need to be able to hold on to your portfolio over the longer term to be able to get the best benefits out of your investing. And if the gap of mortgage repayments and rent coming in is significant, in other words, the house is worth or is being sold for 2 mil and the rent coming in is 2%, 2.5% of that, that's going to hurt, and it cramps the number of properties you could hold. And of course we don't want to get caught up in the how many numbers of properties we hold, but 2 is better than 1 and 3 is better than 2 within limit. So often when people are starting, they just want to be buying houses only, and it may be that perhaps we need to be also looking at units in not traditionally oversupplied areas, to get a start, an earlier start into investing, and also looking at price points. What's brand new selling for? And what am I buying my established units? The same metrics that you'd use for houses. So there is no clear definition. There is no Puritan way to say that you need to be buying houses over units. It needs to come back to a personal financial capability, not preference, capability, to be able to decide whether it is a unit or a house that you're buying. And it could be that you filled in the larger property, so maybe you've got a house in Melbourne, a house in Sydney, and the capacity now is only from a capital and a borrowing capacity point of view, it is only to hold a unit. And I would rather hold a unit than hold nothing at all. So it really comes back to your investment journey. It really comes back to your financial capacity. It really comes back to your financial capability, in other words, the holding cost, to be able to decide whether it's a unit or a house that you buy. That's your Wednesday Wisdom. I have an awesome week, and I'll see you again next week.